If you are an emotional generator according to your human design, maybe you would like to dig a little deeper into our decision-making process, because as we find and come into human design in our experiment, it seems pretty simple. We are taught and we are told and we read, follow your strategy and authority. Are you a pure generator? Is your sacral responding? What does that feel like? If you are an emotional generator, what does your sacral respond to over time at different periods throughout your emotional wave? What is becoming ever so more clear to me is that there's a whole lot going on in the background regarding how we make our decisions. And yes, if you are far into your experiment and you are so attuned to strategy and authority, you may not even hear the background noise anymore. If you're like me, an emotional triple split with 7 defined centers, you're probably getting a lot of feedback that we kind of have to learn how to navigate before we land on or So welcome back to my channel. I am Dr. Kate Flynn, your active deconditioner, and these are all the things we're going to dive into today. So full disclosure, I've set my life up in a way that I don't have to make a lot of decisions at the current moment. If you've been watching for a while, you probably know we sold everything about 2.5, almost 3 years ago, and moved to Ecuador to really jump into our deconditioning and find out who we are according to our design and see how that plays out in our lives. So basically, we live in an expat area of northern Ecuador in a little town called Cotacachi. I create content, I put it out there, I wait for people such as yourself to respond, and when you respond and reach out and schedule an appointment, I respond to you. But I'm not doing a lot in the community where I have to make a lot of decisions. I'm just not, but sometimes I can still get pulled down the rabbit hole, and I've had a little bit of fun these last couple of weeks kind of really tuning in to everything that's going on, from open centers to, or undefined centers to defined, from the different teams and my triple split, and all that goes into making a decision before I even get to that sacral response. So maybe you are not an emotional generator triple split, but I promise you will probably be able to extrapolate some of your own data from what I have to share and see how, when you look back and reflect on your decision-making process, it starts to make a little more sense. Because yes, we are training ourselves to live from our bodies. It helps if we can bring our minds on board. It just makes things a little bit easier. So, real life example, my husband and I hung our aerial hammocks about a week and a half ago. And our ceilings in this room are really high, and I wanted to get more into low fly and yin, restorative types of things that you need your hammock to be closer to the ground. You can't buy daisy chains and the hooks and the different materials you need to make that happen easily here. So I went online into the expat group and said, hey, is anybody coming back from the States that could bring me daisy chains and the, I can't remember, carabiners that I need to do this? And people got really curious, and there was a lot of response in the group. They were like, oh, do you teach aerial yoga? I would love to learn how. I used to take classes in the States. Are you going to? And it was like, oh, all these exciting things started happening in my body. And it was like, how do I discern and wade through all of that excitement to land on my sacral response for the long term? Do I have the sacral motor energy long term to engage in this and bring it into being? So I'm gonna put my chart up here on the side, and we're gonna go through center by center. My undefined or open, as you can see, head says, oh, ooh, that's a shiny new idea. You could totally do that. It's very excited. It's still excited right now. Then we go down to my undefined mind. It says, well, I'm deconditioning, and I know I'm not supposed to have a strong opinion, but if we look back on your past experiences, didn't you kind of dabble and try to move in that direction before? I had my private practice inside of a yoga studio in Knoxville before we left. I learned how to teach aerial. I learned how to teach hatha. And I almost went into business with the owner of that center to create something even bigger in a more expensive location. But thankfully, I did not, because we ended up moving here instead. Now we go down and we'll come into what I call the first team in my triple split. We have defined throat, defined identity center, or G, connected to defined spleen. Now, the loudest one that I can hear in this decision-making process is my identity center. Oh, I would love to be an expert. I would love to be looked at as though I'm a yoga teacher or a mobility specialist. That would just be so cool. My spleen's kind of quiet. You know, it's not a life or death situation. If it had anything to say in the moment, I missed it because the spleen is here and gone. And my throat, it's kind of like crickets in there. I can even feel it right now. It just doesn't have anything to say about that, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. Now we move down into what I call the second team, my emotional center connected to my ego, which, as you can see, is all unconscious, which was super fun when I had my first consultation and the guy told me, oh, you have emotional authority, but you have no conscious awareness of your emotions. That sounds like fun. Not. But anyway, my emotional center is always pretty excited about whatever's going on. And my ego will 99% of the time say, you can do that. You can make that happen. You can bring that into being. Oh, and I've fallen for that so very many times. We come down to the third center, the third team going on within this earthship meat suit body. And we have the sacral response connected to the root. Now, before I even get to the sacral center, I'm going to talk about the root, because guess what's been going on the last week and a half? The root has been lit up by the transits. Full disclosure, this has been my first real awareness of being impacted by the transits. And I had to have somebody bring it to my attention, because I'm going over all this excited, shiny, new idea. I could do this thing and be a part of the community. It would be really cool. And then I'm scrolling on my Facebook, because I do that probably more frequently than I should, but that's okay. I'm not going to judge myself. And I come across a meme that someone put in one of the human design groups, Human Design for the People. It's probably my favorite group that I like to hang out in and observe what's going on. And there's a picture of Michael Jackson, and it's like this contemplative where there's two of him and he's kind of looking like this, and then another version of him is looking on. And the meme says, all these transits got me thinking, do I want to be starting something? And I was like, oh, I do want to start something. So I looked up the transits, and sure enough, you can see down here, I have one gate pointing from my spleen to the root, another from my sacral chakra to the root, and another one defined. And those two that are pointing towards are being lit up by the transits, and the channels are being completed. And root energy is all about working hard and starting things. So of course, I'm getting all this information from the different centers in my body. The transits are saying, yes, go for it. You can do it. But what I've come to realize, for me, a sacral response that is a no, we hear about, we read about, you know, it's kind of like a closing or a retracting of the energy. It's a no. Whatever it may be that other people say, I'm starting to realize for me, it's hesitation. I feel hesitation, and my emotions, my ego, the root center activation will all try to overwhelm that hesitation and drown it out. But when I'm still and quiet, I feel it as, the best way I can describe it is hesitation. Like, I know everybody else thinks this is going to be a great idea, but if you're asking me, do we have long-term sustained sacral motor energy available to do X, whatever it may be, in this case, start an aerial yoga studio, then the answer is no, I don't. I do not have that. And it's 2.5, almost 3 years in, it's still a little sad for me. I get attached to the excitement of all these opportunities. But at the same time, I can look back to different circumstances in my past where I bowled over that hesitation. I remember I do an exercise regarding your energetic signature, the feeling you leave with others before you say anything at all. And one time it was literally a bulldozer. Like, I will push forward and move over everything in my path. And that always has led to, you guessed it, frustration. It never leads to satisfaction, no matter how much ego energy I had, emotional energy, whatever it was. If the sacral motor is not there to respond sustained over time, it's probably going to lead to frustration. So for me, what I'm finding is the best way to frame the question after something's presented to me is, do I have sustained sacral motor energy to engage in that? And letting it be okay when it's no. Waiting. We hear all the time. It is so important because your emotions will settle. That energy will fade. You will hear the truth of what your sacral response has to share. I promise. So my biggest takeaway in all of this is that I would love to be a part of something here. My work, my practice is all done virtually online. Most of my closest friendships are virtual. They're with friends that I've had for a long time that live in different places. And so I'm not feeling grounded in this community. I'm not feeling like a part of. So my challenge or opportunity is to find a place to plug in to an existing structure. So what I'm going to put out in one of the expat groups probably this afternoon is, hey, is there anyone out there interested in starting? I'm not saying I'm going to capitalize on the root activations of the transits, but I mean, I see the opportunity there. So is there anyone in the community that would love to or has always wanted to start some kind of wellness collaboration, right? A co-op. I've put a lot of thought into this. I'll try to spare you the details, but somewhere where I could hang some hammocks and offer a class or two a week, teach a little mobility, but not go through the whole ordeal of starting a business and renting space and all of that stuff because it's not mine to do. And when you have I don't know if it's because I have a lot of definition or I have all four motors. There is this drive within me and I want to bring things into being, but having that discernment of what is mine to bring forth and what is not, invaluable. So I hope you found something in there that was helpful for you to start making sense of the whole process. And as you and as I continue further in our experiments, I feel like it's going to get a lot easier to turn down the volume on all the other centers and really just be at peace with whatever we have the presence for. Because as we all know, or as you may like to know, as emotional generators, we are here to be sought after, right? So why not revel in that a little bit? All right, that's all I have to share with you today. And if you are responding to working with me to further your active deconditioning, then I would love to work with you and hold the space for you to live in accordance with your design, heal from the past, have your energy restored, and live the life you were created to have. So go ahead and click the link to schedule in the description below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.